Today is the last day of our rose painting, and I see that in the glaze photograph, colored photograph which I have, even the flower center looks quite blurry. So one thing is sure, that we need to have it in a blurry manner. That's why I wetted it in the all over the center, and instead of looking at my photograph, I have opened it in my digital device on my mobile, so that whatever shapes I can see them clearly as possible. So there's a strategy to doing this. First, because it is a blurry area, so what we will do is that we'll place a coat of lemon yellow wet on wet. On top of that, we can at places place new gamboge or slightly darker yellow, any darker yellow which you have. I have placed new gamboge little bit in the middle, and I have also left white spaces somewhere in between. So this being a blurry area, we do not want very many crisp edges, so we will work with a damp paper. And because it is a small area that we are tackling, and even smaller bits of tiny dot like structures, that's why we are using a 0 size brush or 000 brush, or any small brush which you have. Here, after having done 2 coatings of one lemon yellow, and on top of that little bit of orangish or new gamboge color, I am using a mix of orange made with permanent red and yellow new gamboge, and I am putting in certain marks. Then these marks, you will see, are not just one particular color, but they are 2 or 3 different colors. So in the time when this one small blob is wet, we'll put down more than one colors at places where we can see it clearly. That is what I am doing now, and I'll do the same process in the entire flower center. And once I've done that, I'll repeat it, because I'll want it to be relatively darker, especially the central area, which is sort of orangish. So right now I'm working with my 0 size brush with a pale consistency of orange. If you will notice, I'm picking up the orange from the corners, and in the corners on the palette, the orange is not very dark, it is kind of pale. And when I'm creating these rounds, I'm leaving a small space in between these rounds, because there's already a coating of pale lemon yellow on that entire central area. And when each of these blobs are, I'm coating them with light orange, and I'm also coating a part of those blobs with red. Which part am I doing that with red? I'm doing that with red where I see that the sun is not falling. That is where there is the shadow area. At that part, using 2 brushes, I'm first of all putting an orange, and I'm leaving a small white yellowish center in that blob. And having put the orange, I'm also darkening small part of it with red. And all of these, in doing this, I'm using pale consistencies, and I'll keep repeating this process over and over again in the entire area. So this is the basic strategy with which I'm working this entire area, repeatedly. Here, because I see these longish things, that is what I am bringing on. And in the central area, the orangish color is little darker, so I have put little bit darker orangish color. It is a layering process. It will take some time. It will not take a lot of time because proportionally this area is pretty small than the rest of the petals that we have covered already. Maybe it will take 1 hour for you to do it. So having done that orange, now I'm coming down with red in shadow, where I think are the shadow areas, but since the paper excuse me, since the paper was wet and I grabbed a lot of paint on my brush, that's why I got a bigger blob, so I removed that with my tissue. Another part of the strategy to work this central area is to use dots and dashes to cover most of it. Do not use one big straight line. Even if you use it, break it down. In the shadow areas which you see on another digital device, you will find that there is no light hitting in that area. So in that area, come down with a relatively darker color, which is what I'm doing now. And at all times maintain a paper which is damp. It is not soggy wet. The paper is not completely wet, but after putting a layer of water, after few minutes have lapsed, I'm coming down with this paint. And I'm using a small size brush so that I can pick up minimal paint for the minimal structures that we are creating here. Using some lemon yellow for the shadow area in this region, because the sunlight is also hitting at that place, so I'm using the lemon yellow. There are line like structures over there, but it is pale in color in the reference image, and on the sides it has some darker colors because there are folds. Same thing is here also. There are folds where the light is not reaching, which is the shadow area. In there I am using this darker color. You can use red or you can also use pink, because once I will be finished with the red, I am using the pinks in the same shadow areas. So the colors that you will be using will be in the serial order of lemon yellow, then second is relatively darker yellow, or if you can mix orange with red and yellow, do a pale version of orange, and then red followed by pink. And when we are doing the third part of the strategy is to cover less and less area as we move further in our painting. So the pink which I will be lastly using will be very minimal and only a few dots and dashes at some places. This strategy which I have just described, if you can follow it, you will not find it difficult to do, because we are not doing each and every individual blob or stamen, whatever it is called, in the exact accurate manner, because the image which we have, the reference image, is slightly blurred out. So we want to have a blurred out finish to this central area using the colors and the values which are there. Using pink in the darker crevices of the petal and its stamen. Look how much pink I am lifting, hardly any. And my brush is also not completely wet, it is just moist brush. I am doing no straight longish lines, I am doing small dots and dashes. So just look carefully, find out the shadow areas according to the according to the tracing that you have done, because some people said that they have done it by hand, they have not traced it out. So depending upon how you have done it, you will have to find the shadow areas. Now I'm wetting this area once again, because those red areas which I have done, I don't quite like it and it is giving me a hard edge, which I don't want here. It is a blurred out area. So I'm just wetting it with my size 8 blend brush. You can wet it with any brush you have. See, the red is coming off because we just painted it just some time back. Just lifting little bit. Yeah, this is looking better because it's not making very dark marks or lines. And progress in this area, you will not be able to visualize it right away. It will only be, you can only see the after effect, the amount of work you have done once you finish it. So if you sit for a maximum an hour, you will be able to do it. And in between you can also take snapshots of your painting and send it to me in case you want any corrections to be done. or any suggestions or review. When I paint a blurry section like this, it feels to me that okay, I'm not making any progress till the time I, fast forward my video and find that oh, there was a lot of progress. We started with a white page. I'm not picking up a lot of paint because my brush is just damp, it is not wet. That's why. And you see, I'm sparingly using this brush that is in between with dots, tiny dots in areas which I see as my shadow areas in the center, because uh, each of these parts which the center has will have a different shadow area. As per the shape it has and as per the shadow of the other stamen which is falling on that area. You can even upload your images on Facebook Watercolor Harmony channel, and I will review your work and let you know. I'm using some more orange because I feel that the previous layer has kind of faded out as it has dried. So in bits and parts I will be applying this orange again. Now I don't have any orange with me. I always mix it with my permanent red and new gamboge. You can mix any red and yellow which you have. Now for the even darker areas, little bit of pink. Use a very fine tip brush for this area because we need that effect to be there. I think these two dots are also looking dark. Let me see how it goes, then I'll decide what to do about it. Some of these dots on the reference image look pretty dark, however. With faint orange, I'm creating these lines. Also, a very good idea is to take small breaks also and look at your image after a while. Like, if you keep doing it, sometimes you may get lost if you are starting up, if you are new to this watercolor medium, especially when doing such an intricate area. Even though we are not doing the precise measurements of each shape and form, but if you remove yourself from the painting for a while and then come back to it, you will understand more, because you will be having fresh eyes to look at that. So fresh eyes will give you fresh perspective as to how and where to go about using your darks or mid values. Mid values is nothing but the value range between the lightest and the darkest of shades. That is, in terms, I am just talking for in terms of a layman, so that all of us can understand equally well. If you do good value judgment in this area will look very beautiful, because it has a good potency to make your rose even better and lively, or maybe a little blurry if it is not according to the values which we see, which need to be applied. And if your paper is drying up, just spray some water on it and let that water soak up a bit slightly, and then apply your paint, so that the paint doesn't run along with the sprayed water. It can remain more or less static, provided, yes, you are not using a very watery paint. Use a relatively thick paint on a small tiny brush. This paper is damp right now and it will blur out. So we keep repeating this process. Wherever we find that the values do not look proper, we add or reduce. Reduce means we have to take off some of the color from some places maybe. Each person will have a relatively different flower center. Not all our flower centers will look the same, but yes, if you follow the strategy which I have given, then you'll be landing up at a very good place if you follow it. Finding the shadow areas again, only a part of it, not the entire thing am I covering. You can even use a mix of pink and red as we have done for the petals, if you feel so. It will look good, obviously, because there is a color harmony in the entire painting that we have done. Now this is another layer and I'm coming down with pink this time. I have slightly wetted that area. And using the pink sparingly at places where I feel the shadow area is lying for a particular shape. So let me know if you have any, if you want to show your work. I'll be more than happy to see if you have tried this, doing this rose, light pink rose. It was a relative amount of challenge because we have used mostly all the pale colors, but I think it's very interesting, has come out to be very interesting. So thank you, and we'll see each other again.